هذا موجز بأهم الأنباء من العربية. أهلا بكم. وقبل أن نبدأ عناوين هذا الموجز أو أهم الأخبار في هذا الموجز، نشير إلى العواجل التي تابعناها على شاشة العربية قبل قليل، حيث قرر مكتب نتنياهو عدم فتح معبر رفح حتى إشعار آخر، والمسألة كما هو معروف مرتبطة بما تراه إسرائيل محاولة لتسليم الجثث الموجودة داخل قطاع غزة. قالت صحيفة إسرائيل-اليوم إن توفيق أبو نعيم أصبح في موقع مثالي لقيادة حركة حماس في قطاع غزة. وقالت الصحيفة إن توفيق أبو نعيم شخصية بارزة في قيادة حماس في غزة ومن أقوى الرجال في القطاع، وكان مقربا للغاية من يحيى السنوار ونجا سابقا من محاولة اغتيال. كشفت مصادر العربية عن مشاورات رئاسية تجري لتوحيد الموقف في لبنان حول تفاوض غير مباشر مع إسرائيل. وأضافت المصادر أن الحكومة اللبنانية قد تناقش قريبا التفاوض مع إسرائيل على غرار ما حدث أثناء ترسيم الحدود البحرية. أفادت مصادر العربية ببدء المفاوضات بين وفدي طالبان أفغانستان وباكستان بالدوحة، وأرسلت حكومتا البلدين وزيري دفاعهما لقيادة المحادثات التي قالت باكستان إنها ستركز على إجراءات فورية لإنهاء الإرهاب العابر للحدود المنطلق من أفغانستان واستعادة السلام والاستقرار على طول الحدود. بهذا انتهى هذا الموجز، وندعوكم مشاهدينا لمتابعة هذه المقابلة الخاصة التي أجراها فريق العربية إنجليش مع رئيس الوزراء البريطاني الأسبق بوريس جونسون. ملفات كثيرة تم التطرق لها، أبرزها اتفاق السلام في غزة وأيضا الدور القيادي لكير ستارمر في بريطانيا. نتابع معكم.
Hi, I'm Michal Prendergast for العربية English here in London for a special interview with former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We discuss the Israel-Gaza peace deal, President Trump's role in proceedings. We also talk about Keir Starmer's leadership in the UK, the rise of reform and Nigel Farage, and whether Boris sees a return to frontline politics in the future. Mr. Johnson, thanks so much for your time. I'd like to start off with the news story that has dominated the world over the past 2 years, and that's the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Trump has said the war is over. What is your assessment of Trump's role in the conflict?
It's an astonishing piece of good news. And today, as we're talking, Michal, I think the hostages are coming out or have come out. I don't know how many are out now, but last time I looked, I think about 14 of them, of the remaining 20, were out. And I think it must be a moment of great joy and relief for people in Israel, but also for people in Gaza, because it means an end to the horrifying bombardments. It means we're on the road to peace. And this is a very unfashionable thing to say in London or in Europe or wherever in liberal circles, but I really pay credit to Donald Trump. I give him credit. I think he has worked unbelievably hard. He's exerted American pressure obviously on Hamas, because he said to them, look, if you don't sign this thing, you're going to get wiped out. But also he's put the hard word on Bibi Netanyahu. And, because it wasn't easy for Netanyahu, because he's got these guys in his coalition, the ultra right-wing nationalists, who don't support the agreement. But Netanyahu has had the courage to go ahead and do a deal anyway. So it's a very, very hopeful moment. It's not the end of the story, of course not. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of what will be a tortuous process, and there's lots of difficult points that need to be agreed. And the most difficult, Hamas need to come to the understanding that really and truly it's over for them as an armed group. It's over for them in the government of Gaza, but they get an amnesty, they get peace. They're not going to be pursued, they're not going to be to be killed. That's it. You know, they're able to live out their lives, and Israel needs to understand, and the government of Israel needs to understand that this is the beginning of a process that must give the Palestinians some ability to decide how to run their own lives.
A Hamas official has recently thanked Donald Trump for his role, but they have downplayed the role of Tony Blair, saying he's not welcome. What is your take on that assessment?
I understand that Hamas don't want a role for Tony in the government of Gaza, in the Peace Council. I think it's called the Council for Peace in Gaza. I've seen that. Look, I think that that's not the end of the world. Tony Blair's a grown-up. He's actually, I think, to be fair, he has worked very hard on this deal, and he should get a lot of praise for helping to put it together, Tony Blair. I don't think it's the end of the world if he's not there in the Peace Council, but there needs to be somebody, right? There needs to be some structure that can help deliver confidence to people in Gaza that it's going to be a stable, secure environment where they can bring up their kids, they can have homes, there'll be job opportunities. There needs to be some sort of governance system that's very positive now about Gaza, and that isn't Hamas. And so you need something.
Obviously, there's been an enormous amount of speculation online around the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think that Donald Trump deserves it?
I do, and I think that he has applied the force of his personality and the power of his office to move mountains and to get this thing done. I don't know if you've ever met him, but you can see what you see is what you get. The great thing about Donald Trump is his public persona and his real political persona are completely united. They are the same thing. He's very lucky. He speaks from the heart, and it's unmediated by calculation. He just says it, and he's very effective. And he obviously worked to get this thing done, and others as well, Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, and I think a lot of people played an important part in this. But the Nobel Prize he didn't get it this year, and it's not. I think.
Will he get it next year?
Here's how he can make it absolutely nailed on. Okay, so the Norwegians are maybe a bit sniffy. The Norwegian Nobel Prize Committee were maybe a bit reserved about giving it to him
with gritted teeth.
Well, I think the trouble is that there's been such a big public campaign. They're not used to that. They're not used to people sort of asking for it. They're used to having the pleasure of giving it. So I think the way for, and don't forget that these guys won't be naturally Trump supporters. These people on this committee, they tend to give the prize to left liberal people, one kind or another. But the way to make this thing nailed on for Trump, he can win the prize, several Nobel Prizes for peace, if he applies to Vladimir Putin the same pressure that he's put on Hamas. So he needs to step up the pressure on Putin, and he needs, and we all do. We've got to. And the war in Gaza has been terrible, but the war in Ukraine has killed exponentially more people.
We will come on to that later.
Yes. Forgive me. But that's my tip for how the president can win the prize. Nailed on.
And what about Tony Blair? Is he deserving of the accolade?
Oh, I don't know. I don't. I'm not close enough to the whole thing to know. My feeling is that the Americans have bbeen decisive in this, because in the end, look, America calls the shots with Israel because America is the ultimate financial backer of Israel's defense, and I think when the guys in Hamas looked at, what Trump was supporting, he'd come in with Israel to bomb all those Iranian facilities. You know, they looked at what had happened to Hezbollah. I think that they thought this guy's serious. So when he says he's going to wipe us out, they believed it. And so for that reason, I think that, you know, that's where the prize belongs. It belongs with the Americans, and with Trump. You know, definitely. And you know, this is going to shock. Do you see it? You're in central London now. We're in central London. I don't see any kids out on the streets of central London demonstrating, you know, support for Trump or joy at the end of the Gaza conflict. I mean, they were demonstrating every day.
Why is that?
They were demonstrating every day when it was on, but now that it's over, they're curiously silent. Why is there no jubilation? Why aren't they out there saying, thank you, Donald, thank you, Trump? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Trump is good. I'll tell you why. Because they're all lefties, and because Trump is somebody that they disapprove of, and that's the reason. And Trump is not politically correct, and I'm afraid that's the problem. So, and also, you know what? It had got to the stage where these demonstrations, and they're still going on against Israel. They're not about Gaza. They're not about the suffering of the Palestinian people, which they should be. They're about hatred of Israel, and they've become partly to do with hatred of Jewish people, and it's been very ugly to watch. Very, very ugly. But now that's over, I hope.
The UK under Keir Starmer has recently recognised the state of Palestine. This is a step you chose not to take while in power. What do you think of Keir Starmer's decision?
I think it's completely vacuous. I think it's trivial. I think it wouldn't, you know, it made no difference. It didn't give the Palestinians anything worthwhile. It didn't give the people growing up in Gaza anything worthwhile. You know, recognition of a state should only really happen under the terms of the Montevideo Convention of 1933, which we sign up to in Britain. When you know the boundaries of the entity, you know, and you know that you have a secure government and a recognized system of government, and you don't have either of those in the case of Palestine. So it was premature. I mean, it should happen eventually, but it's premature now and has achieved nothing.
Bridget Phillipson, the UK Education Secretary, has said the UK has played a pivotal role in securing the peace deal. Mike Huckabee, the American ambassador to Israel, has said she is delusional. What's your take?
Well, I think Mike Huckabee is almost certainly right there. I don't think that the Labour government had any purchase on the matter, you know, because they'd lost all their credit with Israel. You know, Britain has been a long-standing ally and supporter of Israel. But, you know, the UK, sadly, under Labour, had taken a different policy, had sided with you know, had allowed these very obnoxious protests to take place in London, had taken steps to stop supporting Israel financially, militarily, and so we had no purchase with Israel, but we didn't have any influence with Hamas either. I don't think, not that I know of. So you know, the UK had not a lot to say, but which is strange really, because the UK, you know, we were the origins of the problem. I mean, if you look at the mandate that we had for
the Balfour Declaration,
well, all that, yes, we fulfilled one half of the Balfour Declaration, but not the other half.
Given the scale,
we created a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine, but we didn't do anything to protect the rights, or not enough to protect the rights and aspirations of the Palestinian people. And I hope that what's going to happen now is that we will finally sort out that second objective. And the great thing about what Trump has done is that the surrounding Arab states are now going to be involved in that process. So it's immensely positive.
Given the scale of the casualties in Gaza, are the ICC justified in pursuing Benjamin Netanyahu for a criminal trial?
I don't think so. I really don't. And I'll be very candid with you. I think that any Prime Minister of Israel would have had to do something to stop an attack like October the 7th happening again. You know, suppose it had happened in the UK, right? Suppose we'd had a pro rata with a population of 60 million and 69 million, whatever we are. That would have been 8,000 or 9,000 people, men, women and children being tortured, killed, raped, whatever. There's screams all over British news day after day. Hundreds of hostages taken. Imagine what the House of Commons is going to do in those circumstances. Imagine what the British Parliament would do. Would they allow that to happen? Would they allow the organisation that did that to stay in power? No way. No way. He had to do something. And so, no, I don't think that the ICC is right. You know, I think it's a political gesture. Again, it achieves nothing. The Americans don't even recognize the ICC, as far as I know. They don't even recognize its jurisdiction.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the UK's role in the rebuild of Gaza.
I hope that the UK will play a big role in rebuilding Gaza, and I hope that there will be, you know, whether Tony Blair is there or not, that there's got to be some way of giving confidence to investors in Gaza, and there will be. I mean, it's got to be a Palestinian-run place, but without Hamas, and we've got to help that happen, and we've got to help trigger business investment. That's the best solution. I'll tell you a terrible, you know, in 2005, when all the Israeli settlers were pulled out, right, of Gaza, what happened was that a lot of aid money went in, quite rightly, and lots of businesses were set up, and lots of and some leisure facilities, right, like cafes and places where you could ride ponies and stuff. And there was a place called Crazy Water Park they set up in Gaza. And maybe our viewers can check this out if I've got this wrong, because I might have got this wrong, but this is what I was told. Crazy Water Park. And it was one of those places where you can go. I've got lots of little kids, and I've got lots of kids, but you know, have you ever been to a water park with the slides and stuff? And you go and you get stuck in the slides. Sometimes it's very humiliating, but you plop into these pools. It's great fun. Okay, people go to these things. They love them. You take your family. They built one in Gaza, but Hamas, he freaked out because the women were going around without their headscarves on, and they were smoking in a public place. The women and there were men and women in bathing costumes. Well, of course, they're going to be in a bathing costume. It's called Crazy Water Park, right? You're not going to wear a suit. It's ridiculous. But Hamas, in I think 2010, it had been running for a year or so. They came in the middle of the night, 40 guys in balaclava, in masks, and they burnt down Crazy Water Park, right? Because it was religiously offensive. I mean, honestly, give me a break. You know, whoever is running Gaza has got to be, I mean, yes, you must be sensitive to people's religious feelings. Of course, of course, of course. But you've also got to have a bit of realism and compassion for the human race. We want to have fun. People want to take their families to Crazy Water Park, right? I'm pro Crazy Water Park. I'm anti-Hamas. That is my position. And I want the government of Gaza to be like that. And I think it can be. And I think it can be, I really believe that it can be a wonderful, but it'll be an Arab solution. It's got to be a Palestinian solution, but with help and with help
without Hamas.
But without Hamas, without the you know, the factional fighting, the zealotry, the ruthlessness, the cruelty. You know, we need to move on.
Moving on to UK politics now. What has been your assessment of Keir Starmer's premiership?
You seriously asking me this question? He was my opponent. He's terrible. I mean, you know, he's making it. Look, I mean, Britain's a wonderful country, okay? And nothing I say should in any way prejudice people's desire to come to London, have a wonderful time. I used to be mayor of the city for 8 years, as well as prime minister. It's a wonderful country. It's a great place to be. But it's sad at the moment because Starmer doesn't know what to do. And he's making huge economic mistakes. He's taking too much in tax from businesses. He's driving people overseas. You know, I mean, well, I haven't seen this since the 1970s. When I was a kid, people were fleeing in the 70s under Labour. People were fleeing London. You remember? Well, you're far too young. You see, it's tragic. And now it's happening again. I haven't seen it. We haven't seen this for 50 years. People leaving the country because of a Labour government.
And him as a leader. Well, you spent a lot of time at the dispatch box. You argued with him.
He's a human bollard. He's like a. You know what? He pretends to be very much holier than thou. You know, he pretends to be righteous, but he took all these free suits, free spectacles. Imagine that. £8,000 spectacles he took from some Labour donor. It was a scandal. Free shoes, free everything. Ridiculous. And he gets pushed around. So I don't like what's happening with this China stuff. I'm not a Sinophobe, right? China's an amazing country. It's very important. China's a part of our lives. Every country. Saudi Arabia, every country has important business relations with China, and so does the UK. But you don't let China push you around. And then we did this thing, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a couple of parliamentary researchers were accused of spying. And they've been, the case against them has been dropped. It looks like pressure from China. And we did this, I don't know if you saw it, we did this terrible deal on the Chagos Islands. Did you see this thing? We didn't sell the Chagos Islands, we gave them away, and we spent like £37 billion over the next 40 years or so, over a long, but it's a huge sum of money to expiate our guilt for having owned them in the first place. It's just mad. Why did we do this? It's completely incomprehensible unless you think that China has been pushing behind the scenes, because China and Mauritius are very close.
Do you see China?
So China has been, and so it's very weak of Starmer to give in to this kind of pressure. Very, very weak.
Do you see China as a real threat to the UK?
Well, I think it's very, very important to have a balanced approach. And as I said, China is a massively important economic partner. We sell lots of stuff to China. We have a certain amount of Chinese investment in the UK. That's great. But what you don't want is to be in a position where China calls the shots. No way. And so when it comes to British nuclear power or British 5G mobile telephony or whatever, you can't have China running it.
Boris Johnson, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.